the buckwheat field, and who could possibly know better than that old willow tree, for he still stands there. He is such a respectable and dignified tree, but is old and crippled, with grass and brambles growing out of a cleft in his middle. He bends forward with his branches hanging down to the ground as if they were long green hair. In the fields around the tree corn was growing, and rye and barley and oats, oh, very fine oats, which, when ripe, looked like a whole flock of little yellow canary birds sitting on sprays. The corn stood so prosperous in its field, and the fuller an ear was, the deeper it bent in pious humility. But just opposite the old willow tree, there was also a field of buckwheat, and the buckwheat didn't bend like the rest of the grain, but strutted very proudly and stiffly. "I'm as rich as any old corn," he said, "and besides, I'm lots handsomer. My flowers are as beautiful as the apple blossoms. It's a pleasure to look at me and my family. Do you know anybody more splendid than we are, you old willow tree?" And the willow tree nodded his head, just as if he were saying, "Yes, certainly I do." But the buckwheat puffed himself up with foolish pride and said, "That stupid tree is so old. He has grass growing out of his stomach." Suddenly a terrible storm broke out, and all the field flowers folded their petals and bowed their delicate heads, while the storm passed over them. But the buckwheat strutted with arrogance. "Bend your head down the way we do," cried the flowers. "I don't need to," replied the buckwheat. "Bend your head," the other crops all cried. "The angel of storm is flying down on us. He has wings that reach from the clouds right down to the earth, and he'll break you in two before you can cry for mercy." "Yes, but I certainly won't bend," replied the buckwheat defiantly. "Shut up your flowers and bend your leaves," the old willow tree called, "and whatever you do, don't look up at the lightning when the clouds burst. Even human beings don't dare do that, for in the lightning one can look into God's heaven itself, and that sight will strike even human beings blind. So if we, who are so much less worthy than they, dared to do it, what would happen to us? Now I'll certainly look straight up into heaven itself." And he did so with pride and haughtiness, so vivid was the lightning that it seemed as if the whole world were on fire. When the storm finally passed, the flowers and crops stood again in clear, sweet air, refreshed by the rain, but the buckwheat was blasted coal black by the lightning, and he was now dead, useless weed on the field. Then the willow tree waved his branches in the breeze, and great drops of water fell from his green leaves, just as if he were crying. "Why are you weeping?" the sparrows asked him. "Everything is so wonderful here. Look how the sun shines. Look how the clouds sail across the sky. Can't you smell the fragrance of the flowers in the bushes? Why do you weep, old willow tree?" willow tree told them of the pride and the haughtiness of the buckwheat, and of the punishment that he had to suffer. And I who tell you this story have heard it from the sparrows. One evening when I asked them for a tale, they told it to me. I hope you enjoyed the story, friends. Sweet dreams. Stay cute.